Hello everyone and welcome back to the Carousel of Progress Let's Build here on my channel. Today we are starting on scene number 2, which is the 1920s. So we're starting off the build just like we started off the 1900s scene by putting down our host as a reference point and then building up the scene behind him. We're starting off here with a nice large bay window using a lot of this kind of dark brown wood. And then we're going to build up off of this shortly. It actually took me a long time to do this first kind of simple wall part. I found it a lot harder to build when there wasn't anything really to build off of, when I'm just kind of building blind like you see here. But then later, once we start getting things in place, the progress and the quality of the progress really seem to improve. Here we're using the same technique that we used on the windows in the other scene, using these custom wooden supports so that we're still able to see through the windows when we put in the glass later. And then just covering that up with some nice see-through curtains. Now we've put in a rug and the chair for our host to sit on. You'll notice that his legs are kind of going through the chair. That was not intentional, but sadly I could not find any solution to give him a chair of the size I wanted. In the actual show, the host is kind of straddling the chair backwards. So I wanted to kind of have that look, but sadly his legs kind of go through the chair a little bit. So I think I'm going to say good enough on that one. Here we're building a nice little tan table with this cloth over the top, just using those drape pieces from the decorations section again. And then we build a little sewing machine behind him, or at least I think it's a sewing machine. It's hard to tell in the pictures. It looks just like this, so I'm guessing it's a sewing machine. And then I wanted to put a wicker basket here because that was also in the ride. And I decided to make the wicker basket using these small candy cane pieces. So I just brought them off to the side around one of these little boxes. And then did my copy-paste rotation dealy thing. And you get a nice looking wicker basket. I noticed there were actually a lot of wicker items. I wonder if that was a trend or a style in the 1920s, because this little footrest is made of wicker. That basket, there's another basket under the sink as well. Seems to be kind of a style throughout the build. And later you'll see put some beverages on this little stand. The theme of this section in the actual ride is that it's supposed to be one of the hottest days of summer. So the host has a fan that says Niagara Falls that he's kind of cooling himself with, and he's got some icy cold drink by his side over here. I did my best to make this look like a drink, but it's just a Christmas ornament and a siren, but hopefully you're able to tell what I was going for. Now we start on the vintage vacuum cleaner. This took way too long. Kind of a few different renditions of it. This was my first attempt, and I realized it was kind of looking too big, using these temple pieces as the bottom of it. So we do go back and change this, but I found out a lot of pieces that would kind of work well. So not all of this was just a waste. Here you see me scaling it down, moving these little silver pieces around, making it smaller, and then I'm going to replace the handle eventually with the shovel handle, which actually seemed to work pretty well. It was nice and thin and still had kind of a rustic look to it. Here we are putting in that shovel as the handle and removing the candy cane. I don't think it looks great, but I think it definitely looks like a vacuum cleaner, especially once we get this bag onto the back. And the bag took me so freaking long, and then I finally found these little jelly bean pieces that seemed to do the job. But man, I feel like I looked through every single piece in the game, and that won't be the first time this video that I end up just searching and searching and searching for a piece. Here we are starting on the stove and electric, I don't know, some kind of electric stove dealy. Putting in these little knobs. I do change these later for the VFX pieces, which I think look a little bit more convincing. And then we're using a lot of art shapes and signs to kind of get that detail in there. I'm just using this ornament as some kind of stovetop kettle or bowl or something. And then we work over to the left side of the stove where it has like an oven type thing. And for that we just use some of those studios boxes and then some more art shapes. The legs I'm not happy with at all at this point. You see me try to arrange them and fix them a few times. But eventually I search and search and then finally find a piece that works a lot better for the theme that I'm going for. Here you can see me just searching through all the pieces. But before I find that, I decide to add another wicker basket over here, this time in white, and I give that one a nice lid and handle. One thing I've noticed is a lot of people start with the main kind of sections of their build and then add the details at the end. I actually find that adding the clutter and other small pieces almost helps me remember the theme and make sure that everything looks like it's going to be cohesive. So I think moving these little clutter pieces around actually kind of helps me stay in the mood of the build. Here we are, we find this nice fence piece that works pretty much perfectly as the legs. Even though it doesn't match the concept art, I actually like it a lot because I feel like this fence kind of ties together nicely with the wicker details, so that looked really nice. Here we're hanging some ladles and spoons on the wall, again directly from the ride, and then we add some shelves with various spices and other food taste additive things. Not quite sure what's up on that shelf. It's hard to see in a lot of these pictures because the stuff is so low res or far away, but there's probably salt and sugar and flour up here. So that's what these little things are. And I feel like this is kind of the moment when the build really starts to come together. Adding in these shelves, they really tie nicely together. The whole scene, the little bits of white from the different elements like the wicker footstand and the stove, it all really starts to look nice at this point. I keep adding little details here and there, touching things up, adding more of those signs across the stove to give it a little texture here and there. And this is where I really get my mojo going, feeling good, and really enjoying the build. Adding a little bit of trim here just to kind of finish up the walls a little bit. The walls are pretty simple, just using those colorable panels. And then now we start on the sink, I think? Yeah, this looks like the sink. This is another time where I spent an absolute eternity trying to find a piece that could be used as the sink legs. And then you'll see me sink this light into the wall, and you'll see what that is for later. Here we find this sign kind of lamppost piece. I don't think I've ever used it. I think it's a vintage pack. And I couldn't trigger the lights off, so I was like, oh no, am I not going to be able to use these? And then I realized, stupid, I could just turn the light color to black, and then that got rid of the little light that was coming from those. But these have a really interesting base that was kind of the style I needed for the bottom of the sink, and I couldn't find any other piece like this, so really glad I stumbled upon that piece. This also shows something really important when you're building is sometimes you have to look in places where you don't expect to find a piece that you're looking for. Like when you're thinking of a leg of a sink, you probably wouldn't think to look in the sign category, but in fact that's where the magical piece was hiding. So it's always good to kind of assess all the different places where you might find the piece you need. now we're adding some pipes. I cut a little bit of footage here where I put in the handles and little cups and things on top of the sink. I think it's pretty self-explanatory how I did that. You'll notice the sink looks a little tubby right now. No pun intended. But it kind of had to be this thick because there's supposed to be an inside to the sink that I couldn't really do because of how thick the arch shapes are. So you'll see me thin it up in a second. I kind of raised the bottom upward a little bit because it looked too clunky and didn't really match the stove. And here we are just raising that bottom part up to make it slimmer. And now you'll see what that little lamppost was for. We are making a little clock on the wall. And then we just use some billboard pieces to make the little center and the hands. And this is a fun little inside reference, I guess you could say. I thought of this when I was building it. Originally I just put it to, 5 o'clock? Because I wasn't thinking about it. But then I realized, I thought about military time. And military time, as you know, goes from 0 hours to 24 hours. So I thought, why don't we make the time on the clock be the time of the century? So the clock reads 7:20. And if that was 7:20 p.m., then it would be 19:20 in military time. So I thought I was very clever for that one. I know. Thank you, thank you. It also kind of works because it's supposed to be nighttime outside, and it's 7:20, and that kind of be nighttime time. I don't know. I like it. Here we're making a little window behind the sink. It's a little thick, again, because I had to use the arch shapes. I couldn't find a piece I really wanted to use for the sides of that window, so I think the arch shapes work well enough. It's not great, but sometimes you just gotta say good enough and go with it. Now we add some curtains. Originally I put these this way, and then you'll see me flip them upside down. Thought it looked a little strange to have them get wider as they go down where they should really get narrower. There, we flip those. And then we added some more curtains behind. And you'll see at the top of this window how the curtains at the top go through the ceiling and kind of past the top. So I had to cover that up with some trim. And the real ride does have white trim up here, but I needed something else to cover it. So I made this little gray box, and what this gray box is that the theme of this scene is a lot of wires. It's supposed to be Thomas Edison and the electricity stuff, and the house has a bunch of random wires going through it, so I thought maybe I'll use this box as sort of a place where all the wires connect to. Maybe there's a bunch of plugs there and everything, electricity's coming out of there. So that was kind of my excuse to make a little box to cover up the top of the curtains. Maybe it's a heating system, or I don't know. It's some kind of clutter thing up there. And then you see me start with the wires. I make a mistake here. This first wire I put doesn't connect to anything, and it stays like that for the rest of the video, so I'll have to make sure that connects to something later, because it looks a little silly having that wire just go to nowhere. But I wire up all the different appliances, one to the clock, one to the lamp. So one's going up and down the wall, and then I think I connect one to the vacuum cleaner. Or I think I did that earlier, actually. Yeah. And we build a simple little light fixture. It's going to go above the sink. It's just a simple metal pole with 3 little lanterns on it. So there's that. And now we come to our last piece of furniture / appliance for the video, and this is going to be the refrigerator or icebox. I don't know when the name changed from icebox to fridge, but it's starting to look more like a fridge anyway. So we use the signs and stuff to make sure it's nicely integrated with the other appliances. Use another sign as the door, and then some billboard pieces as the hinges. These sprinkler pieces are great for little handles or nozzles The little ends of them really seem to work nicely. And then I just use those same fencing pieces from the sink for the refrigerator, and I think it comes out really, really nice. A stack of plates on top of the fridge. Maybe someone didn't finish the dishes. And then we just connect up the wiring to that new light. And then we just, I guess I was wrong. I think this is the last piece of furniture. This is just a little three-legged wooden stool that sits next to the sink. Super simple, like 4 pieces, but again, kind of helps tie the scene together. I loved the blue on the seat of that stool, and I liked how the host was also wearing the blue. So you'll see me in a second go back and recolor some things to blue to kind of help tie in, because right now it's a lot of white. Oh look, hidden Mickey painting. And I had to have one in each scene, so there's that one, some sunflowers. And then here you see me bringing in more of that blue with a nice little blue rug. And then I'm going to go back and recolor those spices eventually. I think, yeah, now we're moving a chair, because there are 2 chairs in the ride, so I just duplicated over the chair from the host over to the side. Here we go, adding in some of that nice blue. I think this really helps the scene pop. It gives you something for your eyes to move to. Little hints of blue everywhere just really seem to lighten up the mood. Some more wiring here with a little round switch at the bottom. And this is just another wire that goes into that top light. And as our finishing music starts amping up, I'd like to thank you guys for watching yet another episode of the Carousel of Progress. Here is our cinematic showcase at the end. Remember, the stuff through the windows is not done, so keep that in mind. But again, very happy with how everything came out, and I'm very thankful for anyone who made it this far into the video. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy what I'm doing, and I will see you guys in episode 5.